Good evening and welcome to Sparkle of Light Spiritual Chat Show. My name is Alice Trevorrow. I'm a spiritual medium and psychic, and I will be your host for this evening. Tonight's topic will be Ghost versus Spirit World. So this should be an interesting topic where we have our two guests, Rob Gutro, and we also have Yvette here with us as well. So let's welcome both our guests onto the show. We will have a lovely chat. And if there's any questions at all, please put in a comment box because we are live on YouTube. We're also live as well on Facebook. But on Thursday evening, we will be going live on Spotify. So any questions, pop in the comment box and I will address that to our guests. Thank you. Welcome, Rob. Hi, Rob.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm all right. Been a very busy week though this week, Rob. It's been very busy, but I'm honoured and blessed to do everything I've actually been doing for Spirit World. So it's been very busy, but enjoyable as well. So it's been all good. So what about you? I think you said you're still at work as well at the moment, are you? Yeah.
I am.
Yeah. So, because you're a scientist as well, aren't you, Rob? You're a scientist too.
I'm a meteorologist, yes.
Meteorologist, yeah. So you're a very busy man, yeah. Yeah.
As long as I can get out of bed, I'm happy.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Rob, we'll be back to you in a little minute. I'm just going to welcome Yvette on as well to the show. So welcome, Yvette. It's lovely to have you back. And this is part 2 because you were both on last week and we were talking about pet mediumship as well as mediumship on its own. So tonight it is about the spirit world and exploring a little bit more between spirit world and also bringing in the paranormal as well with the ghost side of things too. And I'm sure there's many people who don't really understand the differentiation between spirit world and the ghost side of things. I think that will be a very interesting topic to discuss. And I know for yourself, Rob, I know you do have many series of books that's out there. Well, one that I'm looking at, it's a medium's vocational series that you've got that came out. And I think we touched a little bit on that last week, but we'll be touching a lot more on it this week. And it's got Ghosts of Ireland on a medium's vacation and Ghosts of the Bird's Cage Theatre on a mediumship's vacation, Ghosts of England, and Ghost Spirit series you've got also, which is case files of inspired ghost tracking, Kindred Spirits, how a medium befriends a spirit, Ghosts and Spirits Explained, Similarities and Differences, and Lessons Learned from Talking to the Dead. Now, I know your first book, you had mentioned to me before we came on that Ghosts and Spirits Explained was one of your first books, which I think would be excellent for anybody who's interested in knowing the difference to perhaps have a little read of what you've wrote. So how was that inspired by you then, Rob? How did that come around?
Well, I knew that there were places that are haunted by certain people who seem to choose to stay there, but I also had experiences with my own family members. So my grandfather had appeared to me, and then my dad would appear after my dad passed in 2008. He appeared in many different places. And then I realized that ghosts don't have the ability really to move from the place in which they choose. But spirits, the ones that have crossed over, can appear to us anywhere around the world at any time. So that was my first inkling that there is something different about the two of them.
Yeah. And how did you explore that then into the paranormal side of things?
So I set out to first explain everything by energy because I'm a scientist. So what I have learned is that the energy that is within us, the physical energy, like beating heart, blood pumping, and cell splitting, and so forth, couples with our memories of this life and our knowledge and our personality. And And when we die, we choose to either stay in a fixed location of our choosing on Earth, and that's what I call a ghost.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
we cross over, and I call that a spirit.
Yes.
So, and I've also learned that they both use some of the same energies to get strong enough to communicate, but there's a difference when it comes to emotional energy. They use the same physical energies. So, so the physical energies they use are heat, light, water, and electricity, which is why many towns are located near rivers that are haunted. Many haunted towns or oceans. So they can also manipulate those things: heat, light, water, electricity. And the difference is ghosts use negative emotions from living people to get strong enough, like fear, anxiety, depression, and anger. And those things seem to strengthen a ghost to communicate with us.
Okay.
Spirits draw on the emotions of love and hope and faith, and those things strengthen them to come back and give us messages.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, how they actually work on the energy and ghosts of people's feelings, and and their own energy. So that's very interesting. Oh, right. Okay. So so for people who are interested in knowing the difference between ghosts and spirits, then you have numerous amount of books there. That, I mean, I know it started off with your first book, but from there, then you decided to write a lot more. So was that because of more experience of the paranormal that you were receiving? What inspired you to write more books?
Really, it was I was trying to share what I learned about how the paranormal kind of works, and everybody wants to know about it. So these are all my personal experiences, whether they're with earthbound ghosts during a paranormal investigation, or whether they're with spirits, like when my dad visited, or my mom, or a whole bunch of other people who have come to me from spirit, including pets that we talked about last week.
Yeah, yeah. What about you, Yvette? So what's your understanding of it all then?
So I'm quite new to on my journey. So I find that I still learn so much every day from all different types of people. So my sort of understanding kind of tends to mold. It's molding into its own understanding of itself. And I haven't quite got there yet, but I do understand and agree with a lot of Rob's sort of explanations, because I might not have the words to sort of describe it, but those are the feelings when I've had experiences with different things. Those are the feelings that I know. Like, the difference between the ghost is drawing from the negative energy, the negative emotions, and that's what gives them the strength. Whereas before, I might not have called it ghosts. I might have called them negative entities or something like that. I would have given it a different label. But now I'm understanding, actually, that's the same kind of thing. It's just for me, it's a different, I have a different label for it. But now I have the understanding of it's the same thing. So it's really interesting. But yeah, there's definitely 100% with what Rob has described there. There's a definite difference with spirit being more love and light, and from my understanding, ghosts is more of a low vibrational. They draw from the low vibrational energies. That's what gives them strength. That's what gives them sort of control. But yeah, that's my understanding so far on the difference. I'm a bit of a chicken, to be honest with you. So I've always tended to try to stay away from, if I get a weird feeling somewhere, because I know I'm so open. I'm like, oh, I sort of try and avoid places where something's telling me, okay, stay away from there, Yvette, because you might not be able to sleep tonight. So, but actually, over the last year or six months to a year, I won't be too big-headed about it. I feel like I've gotten braver. with it. So now I actually find that I'm not as fearful. I think the further along the more I learn, the less fearful I become, the less fear I have for a ghost or a low energy to scare me, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, what I am quite interested in finding out is, Rob, what have you got any little stories that you would like to share with us regarding ghosts?
Ghosts versus spirits. Sure. I've been on many paranormal investigations, and I was part of a team for about 15 years, and we went into private residences, and we also went into historic places, and we would actually get notified by people that lived in a house, for instance, and they would report weird things happening. So we would go in and try to find out if it was paranormal or debunk it based on what we got. There's quite a few crazy cases. In one particular case, I call it the case of the burned ghost, and that was a very strange case because a woman reported seeing a shadow figure. She and her husband reported seeing a shadow figure in her bedroom. So when we investigated, there were two parts to this investigation. Their dog had passed 6 months before, and we brought my dog, one of my dogs in the investigation, and she mimicked exactly the route that their dog used to take when their dog would come in the house, which told me that my dog saw the spirit of the dog and followed it, and that was one of the entities in their home. That was a spirit. So the dog was visiting from time to time.
Yeah.
But the shadow figure in the bedroom was different. When we first got there, the wife was not there, and when she came into the home, both myself and another medium that was there from Inspired Ghost Tracking, his name was Troy, we both sensed a female ghost had walked in with the woman, with the wife. And this female ghost showed me that she was a young girl. She showed me that her hair was singed. She showed me an earring melted in her ear. It was just horrible to see. And so, and Troy began to sweat, and he got very hot. And we shared these things with this woman. And she said, well, all that makes sense to me because I'm a nurse in a burn unit at a hospital in Baltimore. And she said, many people come into the burn unit and they pass away. Mm-hmm. But she remembered a young girl coming in. And the other thing that she shared with me was the girl in the ghost shared with me was that she was in an explosion in a car. So as soon as I told her that and the melted earring, she called the hospital and she got the woman's name. It turns out that it was a young girl that was involved in a car fire, going to, I think, a prom or something. And she was in this nurse's burn unit, and the nurse had cared for her for a week. She had third-degree burns all over her body. Mm-hmm. And she passed away. And what happened was she didn't cross over. She stayed with the nurse because she said that the nurse was the only one, the one who had given her more love in her entire life and took care of her. So she wanted to stay with the nurse. So she followed the nurse home. Wherever the nurse went, she went. The ghost went. But long story short, we were able to cross the girl over because we got her name. Uh-huh. We confirmed her story and so forth. And so that was chilling to me.
Yeah. That is so sad though, isn't it? That was only love that she really received was from that nurse, and how beautiful that, you were able to get her to cross over to all the love there that was waiting for her. So that is lovely. That is really lovely. What about you? What about you, Yvette? Have you had any other stories? Have you had stories like this or?
Similar, a little bit. So not even long ago, maybe towards the end of the year last year, my sister, she lives about 4 hours away from me, and the house that her and her family have moved into was renovated, but it used to be like a nursing home for the elderly with dementia, or the elderly people. But I remember speaking to my sister, and she had been saying, like, she got three kids, and two of them are like young boys. She'd mentioned, they're been waking up for weeks at 3 o'clock in the morning, and blah blah blah. I'm exhausted, and I was like, straight away, I was already feeling and sensing that there was a spirit in the house, and I could see I was being shown like a little boy about the same age, and I just had this knowing, like, it's a little boy. He's waking them up. He wants a playmate. He's waking up my nephews. So funnily enough, I ended up going to my sister's house last minute, and I knew I had to try and help this little boy in spirit. I've never done anything like that before, but I trusted my guides. I've got a very, very strong connection with my spirit team. I had also spoken to a very trusted friend who's been a medium for 25 years, and she gave me some tips and tricks on how she would help spirit pass over. And I was like, okay, do you want to do it for me? And I was like, no, actually, do you know what? This is something I need to do. It's going to help me grow and learn more. So I went there and like, okay, I'll do this. And it did take me the entire day to go into the actual room where I could feel the spirit, the little boy in spirit. And it was actually in the boy's bedroom. And I kind of had tried to put it off for the entire day. And I was like, oh, I can do it from the kitchen. I'll connect with the spirit whilst I'm in the kitchen in the middle of the day. But my guides were like, no, Yvette, you need to go into that room. You can do this. And I was like, okay. So I went in there. They gave me a bit of a pep talk. And I went in there, and it was this little boy. He had found his way. I think he found his way with the boys when they were walking home from school. And I basically connected with him. He was about 6 or 7. I had to explain to him, the boys, they need to sleep at night, and then they're going to go to school tired. So I kind of connected to the little boy in spirit, as I would do any other child if they were living. I spoke to him on that same sort of level of understanding.
Yeah.
And I ended up with my spirit guides calling his mum forward so that he could see the mum come through. And she'd been looking for him, and then she took him off into the light, and my guides are the ones that sort of helped me open up that light so that the mum could come through. I just asked my guides to work with me. And after that, the boys were sleeping straight through the night. My sister wasn't getting disturbed anymore. But then it did end up being that about a couple of weeks later, my sister had said something weird is happening in the house. And when I'd done it remotely, so I had sort of connected to the energy in my sister's home. And there was a lot of old elderly spirits around. And I was like, where did they all come from? They weren't there the last time that I was there. And I had to sort of work around. I did it remotely. I call it remote viewing. I don't know what other labels there are for it. But there was about 13 or 14 spirits, but all sort of old and elderly. But my sister and her husband over time had started portraying those kinds of mannerisms, like a little bit more short-tempered, forgetful. So it was kind of, once I did that and gathered them up and helped them go to the light, I had to just say, this is where, you don't belong here anymore. This is where you need to go. My guides, again, anyone who was a bit resistant, my guides would sort of help them, escort them into the light. And then after that, you could see the difference in my sister and her husband, where they weren't as short-tempered anymore. They weren't forgetful or blaming each other for not doing something. And it was really interesting that they were taking on the personalities or the mannerisms of all of these elderly people who had obviously passed away in that house, because it's a very, very, very old building. And they felt the next day the immediate airiness. It wasn't so dense anymore whenever they went home. So yeah, that was my biggest my biggest one so far. But yeah, that was hard work actually. But it was interesting. It was an interesting experience.
Yeah, well done though, that you did manage to in the end help the little boy, which was what it was about, really. So
and it all started with that little boy spirit. And I think, I believe that when I helped him, I don't know what happened, but it ended up attracting more or awakening more energies or spirits that might have been a little bit dormant but still there, if that makes sense. I just know that my sister phoned me a couple of weeks later going, it doesn't feel right in the house again, help me. I'm like, all right, I'll try and see what I can do.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Have you come across that kind of situation, Rob, with entities like that in the house?
On occasion. Yeah, sometimes when there are earthbound ghosts that are nearby and they can sense a medium, they tend to go over, hoping that the medium will help them cross over too. So that may have been what was happening there. So maybe you should have just taken a room in that house for a while.
I won't lie. When I've gone to visit afterwards, I had to sleep in my niece's room with her, because I refused to sleep in a bedroom on my own, because even though I'd done it, I still was, like I said, I'm one of those people that I'm like, oh, yeah, I'll switch on the light for tonight. Even though I work with spirit and I have an understanding with my spirit guides and I know I'm safe, there's still that human in me that's like, oh, Yvette, I don't know about this. You need to go sleep with your niece. So,
Rob, going back to yourself, have you had any nasty experiences at all?
Oh gosh. Well, a couple of them. Yeah. So I find that because earthbound ghosts and spirits keep their personality, except one thing I've learned is that when people decide to stay earthbound as a ghost, if they're bad people in life, they're going to be bad people in death as a ghost. Yeah. But if they cross over as a spirit, they lose that badness. They lose because they gain an awakening and understanding that their behavior was wrong, and typically they will come back and say, "Will you please give me forgiveness for what I've done as a spirit from spirit?" But ghosts don't do that.
No.
So I found that if you're a bad person in life, you're a bad person in death as a ghost. And in one particular investigation in Cocky's Tavern in Maryland, I can't remember what town it's in, but when I sensed a really hostile ghost male presence, I felt very uncomfortable in this particular room. And it was a historic tavern, built in the 1700s, which is new to folks in the UK. But still, I went in there and I didn't feel comfortable. And when I went home afterward, the manager of the team called me and she said, I have to play this EVP for you, this electronic voice phenomenon that we picked up in that room where you felt a hostile situation. And she did. And it was clear. It was a male voice. And he said, kill Rob.
Right. Okay.
So, yeah. So I'm glad I didn't stay. There were a couple of other ones. One actually happened in Edinburgh, Scotland.
Right.
when I visited. It was it was near the crypt or the back of I can't remember the name of the cemetery. Greyfriar Bobby Cemetery.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. In the back, there was a man who used to go in that cemetery, and he died, and he decided he was going to stay there as a ghost, which is very unusual to me to find someone haunting a cemetery. But he was a nasty character, and and he told me to get out. But he was being sheltered by, in the back, I guess there's crypts and so forth. So there was that. But for the most part, people are not too bad on the other side. Most of them want help if they're earthbound to cross over.
Yeah. So in situations like that as well, some of my understanding is there is ghosts that don't want to pass over because they're scared of the repercussions.
Yes.
Or what's on the other side, perhaps, of the way they behaved in this life. So they, when they see the light, they don't want to go because they've got that fear. So they stay earthbound. But surely they must have family as well, though, that are trying to get them to cross over and be there, because the love and the light is there, and forgiveness is meant to be always there as well, isn't it? So but and I know the love and forgiveness is there with spirit world. And what we do in this life, and no matter what you do in this life, has been your journey, and whether it be good or bad, but surely they must keep trying to get that ghost to come over, because really at the end of the day they're tormenting themselves because they're not progressing and moving on to get that peace.
Yeah, I agree. It really, as a paranormal investigator, when I go into places with an earthbound ghost, it's really like being a salesman for the other side. You have to sell it. And people are stubborn. And interestingly enough, what I found is that quite a number of people who are very devout in a religion, whatever religion it is, are usually the ones that stay behind, because, as you said, Alice, those are the ones that fear crossing over because they fear the other side. It's ironic.
Yeah. And also the religion side of things as well, the matter, it depends on the kind of religion they were here as well. Some that kind of say, well, this will happen to you, that will happen to you when you pass over, if you behave bad here. So I'm sure there's an awful lot of in-depth religious beliefs there for people that have got that fear as well, but I don't know, it's kind of I kind of think as well, but with spirit world, when we work with spirit world, you're working with love, you're working with the beauty and the love of spirit world, but some people get it confused, very much so. And I've had some things said to me from people I wouldn't have thought would say it to me, but I had one person actually, as soon as they knew I was working with spirit world, they actually did this to me.
What?
Yeah. And that was a member of the family, believe it or not. And I thought, you've really showed your true colors there, because I'm working with love. I'm working with love. I'm not working with anything evil or the devil or whatever interpretation this and other people have.
It's just that they're not educated in what the afterlife is, and that's why I wrote these books too, is to share my experiences so people would educate themselves and not fear what we do as mediums, because we're trying to help earthbound ghosts cross over and find peace. And we're also trying to help the living move their earthbound ghost out so they can find peace. So everybody wins.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're trying to help. You're trying to help, what about you, Yvette? Have you ever come across anything like this?
Well, like something a little bit more non-love and light.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Some people just get the wrong interpretation of it though, don't they?
Yeah.
It's
So if we're talking about sort of people's reactions when they've heard what I'm able to do. So even my dad's, I'm from the Philippines. So Filipinos, they, like my parents, it's very Catholic orientated.
Yes.
So when I remember I was getting a couple of things from my mum. So my mum passed when I was quite young. And when I was getting a couple of things from my mum a couple of years ago, when this all started happening for me, I tried to tell my dad, and he just doesn't understand. And he was like, stop messing around with that stuff, Yvette. Let her rest in peace. I'm like, but she is at peace. She's just coming to say hello. And I was trying to explain, just because our loved ones can communicate or come and send us little things or whatever, or have a message for us, it doesn't mean that they're not at peace and they're not at rest. Their spirit, their energy, their pure love, and they're coming to give up the people that that are left behind, still alive, some peace as well. But if like Rob said, sometimes it's about how much of an education in this subject someone or understanding someone has. I think with my dad, he's very old school, so he was like, stop messing around with that stuff, leave your mum to rest. I'm like, she is at peace, like I didn't disturb her.
Did your dad accept it now, Yvette?
Do you know what? Slowly, he started even saying, oh, like when they realised that what you've said is right. So I think a few months later, he started not asking me, but just mentioning, oh, I smelt your mum's perfume in the lift at work when I was on the night shift. And I was just like, when you're trying to keep yourself contained, because I was so excited that he was acknowledging.
Yes.
I was like, that was mum in the lift with you, don't you? And he just was like, meh. Like, I was like, yeah, he knows, like, so he's a little bit more open, but he won't openly say that he's open. He just gives me the little crumbs to let me know, oh, this happens. Isn't that weird? I'm like, it's not weird, Dad. It's spirits.
Well, it sounds like your mother is working with you to get through to your dad. So that's awesome.
Definitely. 100% she is. And I mean, what better person to sort of open his eyes a little bit and soften him to that side of stuff than my mum or his wife. So he's definitely opened up, but my dad's not a man of many words. He'll just sort of drop the hint and then think that's enough for me, and then I have to delve a little bit.
My father used to be like that. My father used to be like that, and because he was Roman Catholic as well, and he was brought up with that faith, then it used to be when I was younger, it would be, well, you really shouldn't be dabbling into anything like that, and they should be just able to rest in peace. Just leave them be, let them rest in peace. But as I got older and he got older, he actually became more curious. And then he started coming to my demonstrations.
Wow.
And the first demonstration he came to, after me doing it for many years, he said to me, do you know, there might be something in this, Alice. And then he started coming to more of it, and even when he was in a wheelchair, we used to bring him along, and he said to me, that was fascinating. And then he said to me, do you know, I seen your mum standing over there. And I said, where? He said, over at the corner. She kept standing over there. And he started naming who she was with. And I thought, wow, you know, he was a lot older then. He was about 84 by that time. And he said she was with this one, she was with that one. He said, but she was standing over there. He said she was watching it all, watching it all. He said it was incredible. And I did wonder, because while I was demonstrating, I kept wondering, why is he looking over? Why is he looking over there when I'm here? Do you know? And I did wonder, you know. And then afterwards, he's like, "Come here, I've got something to tell you." You know, and I thought, wow, do you know how things can change from years ago to having one perspective of something to completely changing and seeing a completely different dialogue of it, you know. Yeah, it is beautiful though, isn't it? It is beautiful. Yeah.
It is. And I'm sorry that you both had to do all that convincing. I was fortunate because my mother had this ability too, but she was afraid to use it. And my dad was very passive. So whatever my mother said goes. She was
Yeah. Yeah.
they were both Catholic, but my mother was Italian, and my mother said, whatever I say goes. And my father
Yeah.
would say, okay.
Yeah. My mother did. My mother believed in it all because her mum was a medium, you know.
Oh, wow.
So dad always knew that we went to spiritualist churches when I was younger, and he knew that we did all that. But I know it scared him when I was younger. I know it did, you know. And he you know, he would never ask how it went. He didn't want to know. You know, if you were happy doing what we're doing, that was fine, but just do keep that to yourselves, you know. And it wasn't until later on in life he changed. But my mum never. My mum got a lot of information, and she did, you know. But she pushed it a little bit to the side, you know. She didn't open it up like my gran did. My gran used to have circles and everything in the house, you know. It was all, you know, it was all very hush hush though. You don't tell anybody that we're doing this. It's behind closed doors, and you know, but my gran told, you know, I mean, she'd have lots of people coming, you know, and giving them readings and things, you know, for nothing, you know, for nothing. You know, and my mum did see a lot, and she heard a lot, and she experienced a lot, but she never did anything with it other than she knew there was life after life, you know. Whereas my dad was like, I think he really thought spirit world was spooky, and it was all ghosts, and it was all creepy, and there was a fear he had that completely changed, you know. But in talking about that, I was wanting to touch on a little bit of I've lost what I was going to say now. When not ghosts, but poltergeists. That's it. I couldn't think what the name was there. Poltergeists. So I've had experience with poltergeists when I was younger. It was in one of our houses that we lived in. But I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but I was only 15, 16 maybe at the time, and I actually seen a lot of things, you know. I mean, I seen lamps going up in the air, ornaments moving around, you know, lights going on and off, huge lamp that my mum had on top of the sideboard, and it had a massive base. It lifted right up in the air. And then I can remember looking at it and thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to crash down. And it just came back down again, and just went back down again. We used to get knocking on the door, banging on the living room door, the lounge door, the bedroom door, you name it. We got it in that house. But it all seemed to come alive, I'd say, when I touched 15. But yet before that, in that house, I knew I could feel the presence. I felt the presence of what I thought was a ghost, because that was all I knew back then. And I was right about many aspects of the man in the attic. I found out later on, there had been a man that actually took his own life in the attic. So I was right about that. And even my dad even took me up to the loft, the attic part of it, and he said, look, there's nothing here. There's nobody in the attic. And I was like, oh, yes, there is. Get me down. I can see him standing there, and he would be like, oh, you've got a terrible vivid imagination. And then afterwards, when we left the house, we were told, he actually took his own life in the attic. And he was actually an ex-policeman. So that's why I kept seeing the uniform as well. So what's your thoughts on poltergeists and your experience, if you've got any experience on the poltergeist side of things?
I've had, I think 5 or 6. There's some in my case files book where we have, as a paranormal investigation team, we define poltergeist as emotional activity that simulates a ghost. Something that, and in every case that we went, there were teenagers that were under emotional distress.
Yeah.
And they would, in one particular case, there was a older teenager and a younger teenager, and the older teenager did not like her younger sister. And the younger sister was the one being haunted by shadow figures. Things were falling off of her dresser. Things were being moved in her room. She was being scared by pounding on the wall, and she was terrified. Mm-hmm. So when I went in with the other medium, we noticed that there were 2 girls' rooms, and we asked the homeowner, the mom, we said, do you have 2 teenage daughters, and are they having a conflict? Because we really don't sense a ghost in here. We sense poltergeist activity. And she confirmed it, and she said, yes, my older daughter and my younger daughter do not like each other, and my older daughter is under a lot of stress. Turns out the older daughter went to therapy, and the poltergeist activity stopped. It was crazy.
Oh, really? So a poltergeist isn't a ghost then?
Yeah. So
yeah,
that's just one example. But
yeah. So it kind of froze a little bit there. So a poltergeist isn't a ghost. Is that what you're saying then? Is that right?
Yeah. What we have experienced is that a poltergeist is not really an actual ghost, but it's energy from a living person, usually a teenager, that simulates the activity of a ghost. Same thing. Wow. They can, yeah.
So do you think that was me then simulating that? Do you think that was me?
Well, if you were a teenager, yeah, with all the changes in life as a teenager, you could have been expelling all that emotional energy and simulating that stuff.
And you're right. I mean, there was a lot of emotional distress around me during that period. Really bad, emotional stress around me at that time. I always just presumed it was a ghost. I didn't realize it was me.
Well, you did have a ghost in the attic, so it could have been him in part 2. So
yeah, yeah, we'll say that, Rob. Definitely.
Yeah. Go for the guy in the attic.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Have you experienced a poltergeist, Yvette? No.
But I'm guessing, like, I'm actually very grateful that I'm not a teenager anymore. After hearing that, because I was even thinking back in my teenage years, like, did anything like that ever occur where I might have thought it was something?
Yeah, well, they do say it can happen in your teenage years. They also say ghosts can attach to teenagers as well. During a period of time, they also say that. I don't know if it's true or not. Who knows? But certainly that man in the attic never left me alone. But in saying that, his son was lovely. I used to play with the little boy, which was his son, and he was lovely, really, really nice. But the story behind it was the son had actually got knocked down by a car and passed away, died right away.
Oh my gosh.
And the husband and wife they all stayed in that house, and their marriage split, and the wife went away back down south to live, and he stayed there. He would not leave the house because that was where his last route to his son was, so he wasn't leaving. And he took his own life in the attic. So there was him and the little boy, him and his son there. So I it's a bit strange because I know someone who took over the house later on in years. They never had any problems. So obviously moved on, in whatever way, I don't know. I hope they moved on. I hope maybe somebody helped them move on. I don't know, but they certainly are, as far as I'm aware, they're not there now, because they certainly weren't. Well, they certainly weren't there with this couple that moved in. Although the person that took the house straight after we left did say to my dad, "Oh, you never told me that house was haunted." You know what Dad said? My dad said, "No, honestly," he said, "I've never experienced it," and he hadn't. That was the truth. He had never experienced it. It was just myself and my mum, just us two that experienced it. But I know afterwards someone else, he didn't stay in that house too long, and he only stayed a couple of years. Someone else moved in, and there was there was nothing. It was all right. Everything was okay. So ghosts can move on. But for people who think ghosts and spirit are the same, and it puts them maybe off from going to a spiritualist church because they think it's all scary and all voodoo-y stuff, I really just, and I'm sure you do, Rob and Yvette as well, just want to get across to them that that's not the case. That is just not the case. Your spirit loved ones love you. They want you to come. They want to share that love. They want to share their experience of, how they're still around you. They want to give that information in an informative way through evidential mediumship. So it's completely different, and there's nothing to be scared of, and you're not going to leave. I mean, I know I've heard people say to me many a time, in fact, I'll tell you a little story. I was having a spiritual church evening, and someone was coming in with the catering, and she was rushing about really, really fast. And I thought, oh, she must be in a hurry to go somewhere else. And she says, "It's okay, you can pay me later. I need to go," she says, "because I don't want anything attached to me when I leave here." She said, "I'm trying to go as quick as I can." And I'm like, for goodness sake, she actually believed that that the spirits would attach to her, and she was going so quick at it. I thought she had something else on. I thought she's in a hurry, but no, she was just frightened. So it's a shame, really. Some people think that way, isn't it?
Yeah, and it doesn't matter how fast you move. If they want to attach to you, they will. But
I didn't want to say that. I didn't want to say that, too.
Yeah, it's a rare thing, though. It is rare that a spirit a ghost rather, will attach to you. But, one other thing that I think is interesting that I've learned is that the difference between ghosts and spirits is that spirits use dreams to give us messages all the time. They will come into our dreams and let us know they're okay. I found that earthbound ghosts don't have the ability to come in our dreams. The only thing they can do with our dreams is maybe affect them, because earthbound ghosts emanate negative emotional energy. If there's an earthbound ghost in your house and you're asleep and you're dreaming, and the ghost comes into your bedroom when you're asleep, they're emanating negative emotional energy. So it may affect your dream to turn into a bad dream. But they can't put themselves in your dream as an embodiment. They can't show you what they look like in their dreams. That's been my experience. I don't know if you've had a different experience.
That makes sense, though. Yvette, have you?
I've had an experience. Actually, not too long ago. I had spent some time with some people, and the conversation was quite not negative, but we were talking about like things that would normally scare me. So it just so happens that I didn't realize this at the time, but one of the people, she was working with, whether it was knowingly or not, low vibrational energies. So when I had spent time with her, quite a long time with her, the low vibrational stuff had sort of piggybacked on me into I was staying at my sister's at the time, but I piggybacked into the house when I went home. And I remember hearing, it started making weird noises in the house when I was on my own. I like similar that you described, seeing a shadow walking around my bed. But because I have such a strong connection with my guides, I do my protection, and I believe I'm divinely protected. It's kind of, even though these scary things were happening around me, I wasn't scared. I think I was also a bit not understanding what was happening. I was in like my own little world where I was like, meh, like I had no fear. But what I believe had happened is I'd fallen asleep, and I remember having a dream. And in the dream, I was in my room where I had gone to sleep. And I just remember seeing like a dark figure. It wasn't like a human, it didn't have a face. It was just like a dark, and it just didn't feel good. But when I was asleep in my dream, or I think I was in another realm, maybe I hadn't fallen fully asleep. I had quite a scary experience where this thing had grabbed me, picked me up, and I was sort of quite scared. It was the first time anything like that had happened to me. But then I heard a voice. I called in Archangel Michael, he's a protector. So I called him in, and I did feel his calming energy come in and surround me, but he didn't cut the connection, because I knew something was grabbing hold of me in my sleep. And in the end, the voice had told me, keep calm, stay still, because I was sort of struggling with this thing. Yeah. And as soon as I sort of kept myself still, the voice came again and said, blast it with love from your heart. And I was like, okay. So I literally, in my mind, I dipped into my heart space. And then as soon as I did that, I thought of a memory when I was surrounded by family on holiday, where I was just feeling all of the love that you get at a family party. I just took myself to that memory where I felt all this love and laughter and joy. And all of a sudden, in this dream, this thing got blasted away, and I was dropped to the floor. At this point in the dream, I had run downstairs to go and find someone to say, oh my God, something just grabbed me, because I didn't realize I was asleep at the time. Oh. But then when I found someone to tell, something happened when I was asleep. I woke up back in my bed upstairs. So before I could explain, does that make sense? Like it was all in a dream or in another realm, but it was exactly in the exact place where I was, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I wasn't awake when that happened. I was definitely I'd slipped off. But I woke up. It's like I was in another realm. That's the only thing I've ever had where that has happened. And I just called it a dark energy or entity. I didn't really know what else to call it. I just know I was just grateful that it was gone afterwards. And after that, there was no weird noises in the house, no shadows walking around the bed at night when I was trying to go to sleep. And yeah, so whatever happened there, it was gone afterwards, and I'd never felt so grateful. But funnily enough, I do remember that my mum, even though I'm quite lucky, so I mentioned my mum had passed away when I was quite young, but she acts like a massive protector for me, because there's been a couple of instances where there's been things, low ghosts or energies around that I've not, or been left behind, and my mum will always find a way to send me a warning, whether it's in a dream. She actually did one where my brother phoned me and said, something happened with the tea bags. I was like, what? And he was like, I've come home and all the tea bags are on the floor. But then when this had happened later on, I realized my mum was sending me a warning to let me know that there was a trickster in the house. Like, this dark thing was trying to trick me by making all of these noises and footprints on the floor, trying to scare me. And I was like, oh, she really does. Yeah, she was always coming to me, waking me up in dreams. Whenever there's been something where I need to cleanse the house or or need to sort of do some extra protection rituals or practices around that I need to implement. So I'm quite lucky like that. Thank God.
I have one more question about dreams. When I dream of my mom and dad, they usually come through looking younger. Especially my dad. He comes back looking like he's 35, and I don't remember him at 35 because he passed it at 79. So a question for you, Alice: when you dream of your relatives in spirit, do they come back as younger selves?
Yeah, well, that's very, very true. That's very true. So yeah, I have not dreamt of my mum yet in spirit. I have not had that dream, but my dad always comes. He's younger than he was, but not really young, if you know what I mean. He's just younger than he was, and he looks healthy in the dream. I have dreamt about my dad, and in fact, it's not a dream. It's very real. It's very real, and we have a conversation. I have never dreamt of my mum yet. Never had a dream of my mum at all since she's passed. Not one.
In life, did your mom let your dad do all the talking?
No. Well, yeah, actually, yeah, she did actually. Yeah,
So when my dad passed first, so he would come through to me. And then after my mother passed, I don't hear from my dad anymore because my mother used to do all the talking. So my dad stands in the back and he lets my mother do all the talking. Just as he did in life.
Yeah, that's very true, because my dad did do all the talking. Yeah, he was very talkative, whereas my mum would just let him do the talking and she would kind of be in the background. That's very true. Yeah. I never thought of it like that before, but that makes sense.
But it does. I'm connecting that as well with my grandparents when they come to me. It's always my granddad doing the talking, but he was always the more chatty one. Always, sort of, yeah. Makes a lot of sense, actually. Yeah. Wow.
Awesome.
Yeah. What I also was going to mention, because we were talking about dreams there, about a few months ago, my husband had an experience, and because he says I always talk when in my sleep. He said, you're having conversations, but he said you have full conversations with people in your sleep, And he said, so you were just doing your usual as far as that, he said, I could hear you. I said, and then the next minute, he said, I was kind of asleep, but I felt I was starting to come round. I felt something shoot right through my body and go right out the other end. I said, I felt it really, really strong. He said, and that was him. He couldn't sleep after that. He woke up and he said, I got a terrible fright from it. He said, because you were talking away to somebody. I was aware you were talking to somebody, and then I just felt this shoot right through my body and go right out. Of course, I laughed at that. I thought it was funny, but but no, he was actually, it wasn't really funny because he was pretty shook up about it, you know. And the following night before we went to sleep, he said, I hope that doesn't happen to me again. I don't want to experience that again. He said, that was really horrible. He said, I got a terrible fright with that. So I just took it as being whatever spirit's been with me. I've maybe just jumped out and just went really fast, and obviously maybe went right through, but they didn't mean any harm, but he got a fright. So I don't know what your thoughts on that is, Rob.
Well, I wouldn't want anybody to do that to me while I'm sleeping either.
No, I know. And he did get a fright. he did get a fright. I've never experienced anything like that, though. I've never experienced that, but then it was coming from probably whoever was with me that went through, you know. But he said it was so fast, you know. He said, well, I felt it. I really felt it, you know. So, but just when you were talking about sleep and dreams, etc., that very powerful, very powerful. Before we come to a close, can I just ask a question about ghost boxes?
Sure.
Now, yeah, I'm quite interested in the ghost boxes. All right. Now, I have had some experience of it in the past, you know, many years ago, but I don't have my own ghost box. But do they really work? Would be
well, since I'm not a technical guy, our tech guy, I think they probably have like a 40 or 50% success rate.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard for me to know, but the way I look at it is that spirits can manipulate energy, and some ghost boxes are basically just AM radios stations that the ghost can play with to land it on a word to give an answer. And sometimes we've gotten some crazy things. So I think there's some good in it. Again, I'm not a technical guy. I just use my head.
No. So have you ever been around it, or someone's done it, had a ghost box? Because I have, but I'm not. Although it was very good and there was a lot going on in it, I'm still unsure if it's real or not. If you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm on the fence.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I am as well. I mean, although there was a lot of things that's happened in it, I still was a little bit kind of, I'm still not sure. You know, I wasn't, you know, so I wasn't sure if it was something that perhaps you had experienced. I thought I would bring it up, you know, just to see, because if it is,
I leave it to the tech guys. I'm busy doing the medium thing in a different part of the house.
Me too. But we were in a circle, and it was a very good place as well. You know, and there was a lot of stuff that came through the ghost box. There was. It's not something I would do at home. It's not something I would certainly do at home. But I just thought it's quite interesting. I mean, I know the electricity side of things and the energy can, and especially with a whole crowd of people, but I just wondered how factual it really is. Is it energy? Is it really coming, you know, from spirit? There was a lot of it. I'm still, as you say, on the fence about as well. So, what about you, Yvette? No, I wouldn't imagine you would have done. I think you'd be running down the road.
I've been running away. You know me too well already. But do you know what? Actually, as I was listening to that, I was thinking, would that be something that would interest me? And I'm like, no, definitely not, because the way I think it would intrigue me. I might watch it on the telly and switch it off after 5 minutes because I'd even get scared at that. But
no, I'm quite intrigued. No, I'm intrigued. I'm quite intrigued by it all. I am intrigued by it all
because it's a piece of a physical piece of technology.
Yeah,
I would, for example, I would trust a medium more than I would do a piece of technology, because I don't know what energy is manipulating that technology. At
Yes.
least I know with a medium like
Yes.
you two, I know
Yes.
you'd only be receiving from love and light, if that makes sense. So I would always trust
Absolutely.
a medium.
Yeah.
I'd always trust the medium over to technology, because technology can be manipulated by anyone. So I like the people rather than the stuff.
Yeah. Well, any last words from you, Rob? Any last words before we come to the end?
Just for your listeners, if you want a message from your loved ones in spirit, ask them to come into your dreams, because it's the easiest way for them to give you a message. If you have questions for me, you can always find me at robgutro.com or on Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff. And I just wanted to say thank you so much to both of you for having me back. It's been so interesting to talk about ghosts and spirits.
Yeah.
And I look forward to joining you again. And until then, always be in good spirits.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have you've got other books that will be coming out as well, haven't you? I think are you not writing some at the moment?
I have 7 more in the queue.
Yeah. That's good. Well, then maybe, before you get that published, you can come back on and give us a little bit more insight about the new books that you're going to be publishing as well. So that would be good. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Yvette, any last words before we?
No, I just wanted to say thank you to you both, because like I said, I'm still learning lots, and I've learned so much and I'll definitely be getting your book. I've written it down, the first book that you wrote, because it's, and thank you, Rob, because I always had the feeling of the understanding that there's the difference, but you actually put words to that for me, and I was like, now I can rest without having to try and figure out how would I explain this. I'm just actually going to send this video to my friends and say, watch this, because Rob's explained it perfectly.
I appreciate
I don't
that.
have to try anymore, because we've had this conversation so many times. I'm like, I don't know how to explain it. But thank you for sharing that, because it was gold. Now it's going to save me all the explanations. I can just send the link of this video and say, go and watch Rob and see how he explains it.
I purchased one of Rob's the pet mediumship one. I purchased that first one, and it was really good. But I'm going to have a look at the paranormal ones, and I'm going to see which one I feel drawn to and purchase one as well of it, because I like to investigate further on different aspects of it all, because I think it's good that we've got that knowledge. So we can exchange our book chapters there of it then.
You're too kind. Thank you.
Oh no, you're very, very welcome. I would like to thank you both for coming on to the show. And before we leave, I'd also just like to point a couple of things that's going on here as well. With Sparkle of Light events, we have got June the 27th. We've got a mediumship and a psychic demonstration plus angel card readings, and there will be some gifts on the night as well, and it will be at the Arden Cable Hotel. Tickets are through Eventbrite, myself, or the hotel itself. And the doors open at 7 p.m, 7:30 till 9:30, June the 27th, Sparkle of Light events, Arden Cable Hotel. And the next one is Sparkle of Light Spiritual Centre and School, where I will be running a beginners and progressive workshop, and it will be Sunday the 23rd of June. It will be 1 o'clock till 5, and just contact myself or through Eventbrite for any further information on that as well. So I would like to just say thank you to yourselves. Thank you also to the audience. And also remember, we are on this Thursday, and we're on at 8 p.m. on Podcast, Apple, and lots of other broadcasts that I have published during this show this evening. And if you've missed it, then listen to the audio version on it, 8 p.m. on Spotify this Thursday. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. And so until then, I would like to just say good night. Look after yourself and each other.